No idea why. This is the only play in the first folio that is not divided into acts and scenes. It's the only play, as far as we know, of Shakespeare's that is not divided into acts and scenes. We don't have any manuscripts of it. We don't have any other versions of it. That is, it does not exist in quarto form earlier than the first folio. And Bevington talks about this a little bit in his introduction, just on the first page. He makes the comment in the first paragraph, almost to the middle of the first paragraph. He's kind of comparing Antony, Cleopatra with Lear, Macbeth, and mentions Lear gives proper names to 14 characters, Macbeth 18, Antony, Cleopatra 31. So Antony and Cleopatra has more than double the named characters than does King Lear. Okay? King Lear is regarded, it's one of the two greatest tragedies in the English language. The other one would be Hamlet. And then Othello maybe just slightly below that. And then the Scottish play, Macbeth, just maybe a little bit below that. Macbeth is the shortest of them all. Okay? 42... I've got it written down there, 42 separate scenes. Okay? How do you know when a scene occurs in drama?
Location.
Pardon?
Change of location.
Could be change of location, but you don't often know when change of location occurs. Somebody enters or leaves the stage. It's somebody walks on the stage. That's a scene change. Whenever somebody enters or leaves, okay, you get 42 of those. In other words, people are coming and going, relatively constantly in this play. Why? Well, for one reason, because you have so many characters. Okay? I don't remember. Have I talked about the Three Unities at all? Did I earlier in the semester? It's because I'm not doing this course the way I should be doing it. Aristotle, in his book Poetics, which is about drama, it's about poetry, but it's primarily about drama, primarily about tragedy, and it's written based as the model for the Poetics is Sophocles' Oedipus the King. For Aristotle, that is the greatest tragedy. That is the highest form of tragedy. Okay? Aeschylus's tragedies, they're good, but they just don't reach the same level as Oedipus the King. Okay? So based upon Oedipus the King, Aristotle, being the quote-unquote scientist he was, deduced certain rules, okay, that tragedies ought to have. Among those rules are what are called the Three Unities. Okay? Unity of time, unity of place, unity of action. Now, what he meant by that is unity of time. The action of a play, the time period of a play, ought to occur from beginning to end within a 24-hour period. If you've read Oedipus the King, it just boom, boom, boom. It just goes right along. Okay? If you've read Antigone kind of implies that maybe there's a little bit more than 24 hours. But it's not crystal clear. Okay? In Euripides' tragedies, the Oresteia, Agamemnon, the libation bearers, the Eumenides, in each of those, you get longer than 24-hour time periods, which is why Aristotle did not use them as the base, okay, because he didn't think that Euripides, for example, was attending to this. Okay? Unity of place. All the action in Oedipus the King occurs where? For those of you who have read it. Thebes, okay. Even more narrowly.
The palace.
In front of the palace. The palace is the background. All the action occurs right there, right in front of the palace. It doesn't shift to the town center at all. Okay? Action, single plot. You get a lot of subplots in Oedipus the King? No, it's all about what? Who killed Laius? That's the cause for the plague in Thebes. Okay? Now, these ideas of the three unities would get really popular again, according to literary critics and authors, in the period roughly 100 to 150 years after Shakespeare dies. Okay? You get what's called the Neoclassical Period, the very late 17th century, 1680, 1690, when John Dryden is starting to write, and then throughout the 18th century up until Samuel Johnson, and just after Johnson in the 1750s, 1760s. So roughly about an 80, 90 year period, 1680 or so to maybe 1760, 1770. It's called the Neoclassical Period. It's called the Augustan Age. Why? Because the critics went back to the Augustan period. Well, who was Augustus? Which one? Caesar Octavius, or Octavius Caesar. Okay? It's this Caesar. Okay? Because, partly, it was thought that was the period of the greatest kind of literary output and such. Okay? Now, notice, Shakespeare is 100 to 150 years before that period. Okay? Just looking at any one of the plays we have read so far. Midsummer Night's Dream. Unity of Time. How does it begin? Exactly. Longer than 24 hours. It begins, Aegeus comes in, says he wants his daughter to marry Demetrius. Lysander says, I want to marry her. And how does Duke Theseus say, we will resolve this? Well, Hippolyta and I are getting married in 4 days' time. Hermia, you have 4 days to decide. Well, there's the 24-hour window blowing out, completely gone. Okay? That starts in Athens. What does Lysander tell Hermia? I have a dowager aunt who lives in the forest. Let's run off there. Okay, so there's places gone. Action. Okay, we've got the wedding of Theseus and Hippolyta. That is a plot. It's not the major plot. The major plot is Hermia and whoever she's going to marry. Okay? And then there's Helena, Demetrius. Lots of little plots in there. Shakespeare doesn't hold to these at all in any of his plays. Why? Well, because when Shakespeare was writing, the three unities weren't that important. There weren't critics emphasizing this idea. The Renaissance was known both in its literary output and in its, for lack of a better phrase, linguistic ingenuity. Was known as a period of kind of unrivaled growth, testing, experimentation. When you get a whole bunch of words enter the English language from a variety of reasons. Hopefully I'll be teaching the history of the English language next spring, and I'll go over this quite a bit if any of you are interested in it. Okay? So Shakespeare doesn't abide by these. Those later critics that I mentioned, like John Dryden and Samuel Johnson, they didn't care for Shakespeare's not abiding by the rules, which is why they criticize him for it, as well as other writers and some critics take some of Shakespeare's plays and they try to rewrite them according to the three unities. So take a play, a Shakespeare play, and make it fit. Take out subplots, okay? Compress it to one 24-hour period. Remove the multiple locations. In fact, one of the people who does that is a minister. I'm try to remember how to spell his name, because I always mess this up. It's either Bowdler or, I think it's this one. It's the name from which we get to bowdlerize, where you take something and really modify it and change it, possibly clean it up. For example, he did this with King Lear. King Lear ends how? What happens to Lear? What happens to Cordelia? They both die. Well, some of the Augustan critics thought, well, that's not right. I mean, they suffer greatly. They should live. They should live happily ever after. And so Lear gets rewritten so that Cordelia lives and Lear lives. He doesn't live as king anymore, okay? But they both live and die, relatively peaceful lives. Okay, that's all I really want to say. I think about there's other stuff about that I wanted to.
So how like of its time is the Three Unities then? Because it seems to me that Aristotle only.
Well, I mean, some of the plays, Aeschylus, earlier than Sophocles. You get Sophocles, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. Those are the three really great tragedians. Aeschylus is the earliest of the writers. Okay, then you get Sophocles, then you get Euripides. Aeschylus pretty much follows these. Sophocles pretty much follows these entirely. It's Euripides who's really starting to change them. Aeschylus is called really the first playwright. All right? It's with Aeschylus that we get, two characters. Sophocles brings in three characters. And then Euripides starts bringing in a whole bunch of characters, etc. Okay?
So that only applies to tragedies, right?
Yeah, because, we don't have a lot of real early Greek comedy. Okay? Euripides did write some comedies. And we have other later comedies, but it really, because Aristotle thinks tragedy is the highest form of drama.
But even those neoclassical people, they wouldn't try to fit one of Shakespeare's comedies to this. They would only focus on his tragedies, right?
No, I think they would.
Okay.
Because I think they would understand it as applying to drama, not just tragic drama.
Okay.
Because it's from Aristotle that we get all the terms that we have. For example, drama. That's a term Aristotle tells us, what it means. Well, what is a drama? It's an imitation. That's what drama is. It's an imitation of life. Some of it's better than others, obviously. So you have comedic drama, you have tragic drama. Today we kind of have this connotation of drama merely as being serious. Because if you watch it on the Idiot Box, okay, drama is serious TV. What isn't serious TV is called what? Situation comedy. It's comedy that's based upon a situation. The situation is what makes it funny. It's not the situation in, the comedies of ancient Greece or Rome or Shakespeare that makes it funny. It's the imitation of life. It's Hamlet holding the mirror up to nature saying, look at this fool. Not like Festive the fool, but, Aegeus, look at this stupid father. Look what fathers do, Look what sons do. Look what kings do. Look what, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So, let me use that as the segue. We've seen Antony before in Julius Caesar. We've seen Octavius before in Julius Caesar. Now, in this play, a little bit of time has passed. How much time? Well, Julius Caesar was killed when?
32.
Ides of March. The Ides of March, 44 BC. Okay? The Battle of Actium, which is going to be referred to in here. Actually, not the Battle of Actium. That's not what I want. there's a footnote in here, and I can't remember where. I highlighted it. That says, I want to say in 40 BC, Mark Antony was 43, yeah, there it is, page 1336, footnote 20 to line 22. The scarce bearded Caesar. Octavius Caesar was 23 in 40 BC at the time of the play's opening. Antony was 43. Okay, so Antony's old enough to be his father. Why? Well, because Antony was one of the, Antony was of the same age as Octavius' father and Brutus, etc. He's a generation older. Okay? So, roughly 43 at the beginning, and this ends with, where did Mark Antony die? I think it's, I don't have this written down, so I'm going completely by memory here. Battle of Actium in, I might be confusing this with something else. 30 BC? If that's right, I think it is. If that's right, how much time goes by in this play? 10 years. Okay. Now, it's not like, meanwhile, back in Rome, 5 years later, Shakespeare doesn't do that, but he compresses an awful lot of time. If we had done all of that second tetralogy, if we'd done Richard II, Henry IV, parts 1 and 2, and Henry V, okay, Shakespeare takes a long period of time. It's like 17, 18 years, and compresses it, makes it seem like it happened in a much, much shorter span of time than actually occurred. So let's look at the beginning. Antony, Cleopatra, the opening page. And we're told, right off the bat, seen in several parts of the Roman Empire. Amelia chuckles. Well, the Roman Empire is what?
Massive.
The quote-unquote known world. Okay? We have a new triumvirate. Who's the new triumvirate? Lepidus, Octavius, and Antony. Okay? Why do you have triumvirs? Each one will rule over a third of the known world. Okay? Octavius has Rome. Antony essentially has Egypt. Lepidus essentially has what's called the Near East. Okay? Or Asia. So look at the opening. Philo comes in and says, "Nay, but this dotage of our generals overflows the measure." Okay? Overflows the measure. Look at your gloss. Exceeds moderation. Exceeds the means of measuring it. Dotage. What does dotage mean? What does it mean when you call somebody a dotard or a dotard? What is a doddering old fool? Could be over-affectionate. Could be spending all their time, all their energy on one little thing. Doting, if you read Shakespeare's sonnets, as we did in my other class the other day, Sonnet 20 talks about nature, when nature creates the golden-haired youth that the persona of the sonnets is addressing in the first 100 or so sonnets. The speaker says, when nature, started creating you, she fell a doting on you. And did what? Pricked thee out for women's pleasure, my use no treasure. In other words, she gave you something that I can't use. Made you a man. You're supposed to be a woman. Why? So I could use you. Okay? Because the speaker's male. Nay, but this dotage of our generals overflows the measure. Those his goodly eyes that o'er the files and musters of the war have glowed like plated Mars. His eyes have like burned red. Now bend, now turn the office and devotion of their view upon a tawny front. He used to scare people in war just by looking at them. And now his eyes, what? They're turned on a tawny front. Nice little euphemism for Cleopatra. The tawny's giving us an idea of her coloring. She's not black, but she is relatively dark skinned, like a lustrous brown. Okay? His captain's heart, which in the scuffles of great fights have burst the buckles on his breast. Meaning, when he's been in the heat of battle, his chest is so full of courage, it's burst the buckles on his armor. Okay? Speaker's not being serious. He's saying, though, when Antony goes to battle, man, everybody just kind of backs off. It what? Reneges all temper, and it become the bellows and the fan. Bellows and the fan. He's blowing. What? To cool a gypsy's lust. Well, how does he cool a gypsy? That's Cleopatra, by the way. You can tell what his soldiers think of Cleopatra. Okay? How does his heart cool the gypsy's lust? Well, what comes out of the chest? Literally. Breath. It's his breathing, his speaking to her. Okay? And they enter. Enter Antony, Cleopatra, her ladies, the train. Not, woo, not that kind of train. A whole slew of people following them. Why? Because of Mark Antony? Great general of Rome? No. Why? Who is what? Queen of all Egypt. Okay? And eunuchs fanning her. Okay, the fact that they're fanning her, that shows us that she is godlike. Take but good note. And you shall see in him the triple pillar of the world, transformed into a strumpet's fool. Okay? Triple pillar, one of three. Who are the others? Alludes to the triumvirate of Antony, Lepidus, and Octavius Caesar, also to tripartite divisions of the world into Asia, Africa, and Europe. Asia, Lepidus; Europe, Octavius; Africa, Mark Antony. So, Philo says, Antony has become what? This once famous, revered general. A strumpet's horse, that's what strumpet is. A strumpet's fool. Fool meaning he's lost his mind, he's lost his reason. No. That is one meaning of it. Close. Toy. Plaything. Okay? He's just a bauble for her. A boy toy. That's what Antony is for Cleopatra. So we've been told, according to the footnote, Mark Antony's 43 here. How old's Cleopatra?
Probably no older than 30. Or maybe older.
No, she's older than that. She's middle-aged. Yeah, she's probably in her 40s. Okay. How do we know? Because there's going to be a scene when a servant comes in and tells her, we'll get to it later, Antony is married. Who's he married? Octavius' sister. Okay. And she's like, what? And she flies off at the handle. And so she says, okay, come back and tell me what she's like. And the character comes in and, tells her. And she's like, okay, okay. And then he goes, and methinks she's, I think he says 30. And Cleopatra's face just, frowns. Why? Because she's not 30 anymore. Notice, 30. That's quote unquote not young. Cleopatra is very angry that Antony's new wife is as young as 30. Okay? So, the messenger comes in from Rome, tells us what? They're not in Rome. Cleopatra never goes to Rome. Where Cleopatra is always in Egypt. Okay? News, my good Lord, grates me. In other words, leave. I don't want to think about Rome. Why not? Okay? 2 areas, think Athens and the wood. Rome, law, order, and for Antony, a general duty. Egypt, the opposite of all 3. You could say, I don't know, love, lust, chaos, if you want. Okay? And she, no, here, Antony, come on, let's hear what's... Fulvia, perchance, is angry. Well, who's Fulvia? Antony's wife. Or who knows if the scarce bearded Caesar, that's her put down. He's so young, he can't even grow a beard, or barely grow a beard. Have not sent his powerful mandate to you. Notice how she's talking to him. Caesar is sending you orders. Do this or this. Take in that kingdom. Enfranchise that. Perform it, or else we damn thee. How is she talking to him?
Just
Like a child?
yeah, super above him.
Like she is way above him. She's taunting him, right? Come on. You are, just as Antony is Cleopatra's kind of sexual plaything, Antony is Caesar's, she is saying, military plaything. He gives commands, you go do. Even though he's supposed to be what? One of 3 equals? The triumvirs, they're supposed to be equal in power. Okay? Antony, how, my love? That's his like, what? No, most like. You must not stay here longer. Your dismission is come from Caesar. See, I think what Cleopatra is saying here is the news is going to make Antony leave. So she is casting the news in such a way to make Antony feel bad about leaving. So news has arrived from Rome. Caesar has given you leave to leave here. Okay? To make it sound like, now that you have Daddy's permission, even though he is but a scarce bearded boy, Antony, let Rome and Tiber melt and the wide arch of the ranged empire fall. Here is my space. That's a fancy way of saying let Rome go to hell. Here's where I want to be. Here's my space. Kingdoms are clay. Our dungy earth alike feeds beast as man. And we're back at the end of Hamlet. What happens to all men? They become like dungy earth. The nobleness of life is to do thus. What's the to do thus? Well, your gloss tells you may indicate an embrace, or Antony may refer more generally to their way of life. We don't know what Shakespeare means by that because he doesn't give us a stage direction. It could be Antony, takes Cleopatra bends her over and, just gives her a good, long, deep kiss and says, this is what life's all about. When such a mutual pair and such a twain can do it, in which I bind on pain of punishment the world to eat, we stand up peerless. See, I think everything after is to do thus. The when to peerless is telling us probably what the to do thus means. And I think he embraces her and kisses her and says, this is what life's about. If you don't have this, and I don't think Antony means lust. Cleopatra, in her speeches, tends to imply more the lust aspect. Antony tends to imply more the love aspect. Okay? Excellent. Falsehood. Liar, she says. Why? Well, why did you marry Fulvia and not love her? Notice, she talks like Antony's not even there anymore. Why did he marry Fulvia and not love her? Who's she talking to?
The audience. Well, I mean, to him, too.
Is she? I think she's talking to her followers. So, maybe she's standing here, Antony's standing here, Mardian and Charmian and her followers are over here. And I think she turns to them and says, excellent falsehood. Why did he marry Fulvia and not love her? In other words, is marriage not for love? I'll seem the fool. I am not. Antony will be himself. Meaning, how will Antony be himself? What is himself? What is Mark Antony primarily known for? Roman general. That's who he is. He's not known for being Romeo. Antony. Here's Antony will be himself, but stirred by Cleopatra. In other words, woman, you arouse me. You get me all confused and all befuddled. Now for the love of love in her soft hours, that's talking about sex. Let's not confound the time with conference. Conference, talking. In other words, shh. There's not a minute of our lives should stretch without some pleasure now. What sport tonight? And when I think, if I were directing this, when he says, let's not confine the time with conference harsh, he closes her mouth with a kiss. And says, sport tonight? Let's go hit the sheets. No. Here are the ambassadors. Fie, wrangling queen. In other words, shut up. Let's hit the sheets. Okay? They all leave. And there's Demetrius and Philo again. Is Caesar with Antonia's prize so slight? In other words, does Antony not esteem Caesar, or does he esteem Caesar so little? Does he not pay attention? What does Demetrius mean? Caesar's Caesar. He's to be feared. He's to be respected. Philo, sir, sometimes when he is not Antony, he comes too short of that great property, which still should go with Antony. What does he mean when he is not Antony?
His love makes him not himself.
Bingo. See, one of the things Shakespeare does here is we have two Mark Antonys. We've got Mark Antony the general and Mark Antony the lover. And he's going to draw distinctions between them. The problem arises, and you could say this way. The problem arises, or problems arise, when the lover slash passion aspect overtakes the general slash reason aspect. Okay. 1, 2. Actually, we're going to skip most of 1, 2. The first part of 1, 2, you have Charmian and Alexis talking. Charmian is one of Cleopatra's, ladies in waiting, I guess you could call her. Okay, and it's a comic scene. They're talking about love and marriage and sex and such. And then Cleopatra comes in, and she calls Enobarbus. Enobarbus is a Roman soldier who's sworn to Antony. Okay, and messenger comes in again, and let's see here. The messenger brings some bad news, and Antony, I want to pick up around 121. Antony says, 122, the strong Egyptian fetters I must break or lose myself in dotage. Strong Egyptian fetters, that's Cleopatra. Okay, Antony is saying, she has me bound. I've got to break loose of the bindings. Why? Or I will lose myself in dotage on her, in foolishness. Okay? Messenger comes in. Another messenger. Fourth messenger. He gives Antony a letter and says, thy wife is dead. Where died she? Notice, he doesn't say, what? It says, where? In Sicyon, I think that's how it's pronounced. Her length of sickness, with what else more serious importeth thee to know, this bears. And he gives him the letter. There's a great spirit gone. His wife, Fulvia. Thus did I desire it. In other words, I wanted her to be dead. Why? Cleopatra. What our contempts doth often horror from us, we wish it ours again. The present pleasure, Cleopatra, by revolution lowering, does become the opposite of itself. She's good being gone. And I think what he means by that is she's better off. Fulvia is a quote-unquote in a better place, being gone. The hand could pluck her back that shoved her on. I must from this enchanting queen break off. Notice, it's like Cleopatra has a spell on me. The general in him, the reason in him, says, I've got to get away from this. 10,000 harms, more than the ills I know, my idleness doth hatch. Idleness. Where is he idle? In Alexandria. The 10,000 ills, that's not here. That's here. He's saying, while I'm sitting here having fun, problems are arising. I need to go address those problems.
Idle hands, the devil's work.
Yeah, kind of. Enobarbus comes in. How now, Enobarbus? What's your pleasure, sir? I must with haste from hence. Notice, that's what Antony is saying. This is what should be my pleasure. I should leave. Why? My pleasure as a general should be war, killing, Why then, we kill all our women. We see how mortal and unkindness is to them if they suffer our departure. That's the word. Okay, when he says, I must haste from hence, why then we kill all our women. You don't have a glossary. What's Enobarbus saying? When we leave our women, how? Hastily. He's saying, we kill them. What? Enobarbus was talking about loving and leaving. quickie, in and out, you know. I must be gone. Notice, Antony's not playing. Antony's not being facetious or joking. Enobarbus is. Why? Because Enobarbus has kind of adopted the mentality of Alexandria. He's a warrior, but he likes being on shore leave. Under a compelling occasion, let women die. Under a compelling occasion, that is, if women are compelled to. What? What is he talking about? He's playing on the Renaissance notion. I think I've talked about this before. Dying, if you put the ing on both of these, and killing, both of these terms were used in the Renaissance also as euphemisms for orgasm, for sex. John Donne says, in one of his poems, I die and rise again. I die and rise again. Okay? Enobarbus says, under a compelling occasion, let women die. If we compel them, they will die. And they will say, kill me again, and again, and again, and again. It were pity to cast them away for nothing, though between them and a great cause they should be esteemed nothing. That is, if it's a woman or a great cause, well, go for the great cause. That's what you're going to be remembered for. Cleopatra, catching but the least noise of this, dies instantly. Footnote, noise, hint, rumor. What's the noise he's talking about? Antony leaving. If she catches the merest hint, she will die. Okay? I have seen her die 20 times upon far poorer moment. Playing on a common second meaning of achieved sexual orgasm. Line 148. Now, that's not Enobarbus saying, I have been with Cleopatra 20 times. That's Enobarbus saying, Cleopatra's got a reputation. Okay? I do think there is metal in death, which commits some loving act upon her. She hath such a celerity in dying, that is, she is really good at dying. She is cunning past man's thought. He says, no, her passions are made of nothing but the finest part of pure love. And notice how often they use the word nothing in these speeches, right here. Okay? Why? Because it is often punned on, okay, to represent the vagina. Nothing, how do you represent nothing with a number? Samuel Johnson said, if there was a pun, even a bad one, even one that you really have to reach at to get, Shakespeare will use it. Okay? So, Antony, would I had never seen her. Would means desired, wished. Turn of syntax, I wish I'd never seen her. Oh, sir. You had then left unseen a wonderful piece of work. In other words, she is a fine woman, which not to have been blessed with all would have discredited your travel. Fulvia is dead. He finally gets to the point why he needs to leave. It's not because he needs to leave to bury Fulvia. Letters didn't arrive that quickly. She's dead and buried by now. Okay? Sir? Notice Enobarbus is surprised. Antony didn't seem surprised when he heard that Fulvia was dead. Enobarbus, sir? Fulvia is dead. Fulvia? Wait, you mean your wife Fulvia, not Fulvia from some dead. Give the gods a thankful sacrifice. In other words, man, are you lucky. When it pleaseth their deities to take the wife of a man from him, it shows to man the tailors of the earth. The gods can fashion a new wife for a man, much as a tailor can mend or replace a worn-out garment. I mean, how crass can you be? Comforting therein that when old robes, aka wives, are worn out, there are members to make new. In other words, okay, so you go get yourself a new wife. You got a tawny front right, in front of you. If there were no more women but Fulvia, then you had indeed a cut. That is, then you'd be in a bad position. And the case to be lamented. This grief is crowned with consolation. Kind of like Hamlet, right? The grief, dead king, crowned with a new consolation. New husband, Gertrude discovers. Your old smock brings forth a new petticoat. And indeed, the tears live in an onion that should water the sorrow. Antony, the business she hath broached in the state cannot endure my absence. In other words, Fulvia did not just die at home, lying sick in bed. What did she do? Yeah, she kind of led an army. Enobarbus, and the business you have broached here cannot be without you. Well, what's the business he have broached here? Cleopatra. Especially that of Cleopatra's, which wholly depends on your abode. That is, on your living here. No more like, shut up, Enobarbus. Quit making light of this situation. Okay? Tell our officers what we have purposed. I've got to leave, etc. Cleopatra comes in with Charmian. And Charmian says, if you did love him dearly, you do not hold the method to enforce the like from him. What should I do? I do not. Tell me. I'm trying everything I know, so what should I try? In each thing, give him way. Cross him nothing. Cross him nothing. Don't oppose him. Don't stop him. Charmian saying, let him do what he wants. Thou teachest like a fool. That's how to lose him. Tempt him not so far. Now, is this quote unquote marriage advice? Wives, don't cross your husbands. Let them do what they want. I wish forbear. In time we hate that which we often fear. So Antony comes in. Okay? And Antony says, I've got to leave you. She goes, stand farther. Back off, buddy. What's the matter? I know by that same eye there's some good news. In other words, you have a look in your face that says there's some good news. What? Says the married woman, you may go. In other words, have you heard from Fulvia? And she says, you, Antony, come home. Would she had never given you leave to come. Let her not say, 'tis I that keep you here. I have no power upon you. You're hers. Okay, what is Cleopatra showing us here about herself?
Jealous.
She takes jealousy to an art form. Okay? The gods, shut up. Don't talk to me about the gods. Oh, never was their queen so mightily betrayed. Cleopatra, he's trying to talk, and she just, why should I think you can be mine and true, though you in swearing shake the throned gods who have been false to Fulvia? That is, you swear to the gods, and you've been false to your wife. She's kind of saying here, you better be careful, buddy. Gods don't like being sworn falsely to. Right, 'tis madness to be entangled, most sweet queen. No, pray you, seek no color. Bid farewell and go. When you stood staying, then was the time for words. No going then, eternity was in our lips and eyes, bliss in our brows bent. In other words, when you wanted to say, then you used all this beautiful, flowery, loving language. Or as Polonius calls it, springs to catch woodcocks. You used bait, and she took the bait. How now, lady, because she calls him, thou, the greatest soldier in the world, art turned the greatest liar. How now, lady? Does that just mean how? How am I the greatest liar? No. What's he mean? Stop. Far enough. Why? Calling him a liar is doing what? Challenging his honor. Okay. Hear me, queen. The strong necessity of time commands our services a while, but my full heart remains in use with you. In other words, I've got a job to do, but my heart will stay here. Our Italy shines o'er with civil swords. In other words, civil war in Italy. Sextus Pompeius makes his approaches to the port of Rome. Equality of two domestic powers breeds scrupulous faction. The hated govern to strength, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, Fulvia's death. This is the thing that most draws me away from you. Though age from folly could not give me freedom, it dies from childishness. Can Fulvia die? Can the thing that binds you? She's dead, my queen, and gives her the letters. Oh, most false love. Where be the sacred vials thou shouldst fill with sorrowful water? In other words, if your wife's dead, how come you're not just boo-hooing like crazy? Why aren't you just weeping rivers? No, I see. In Fulvia's death, how mine received shall be. Notice with Cleopatra, it's always what? It's always about Cleopatra. She sees how Antony doesn't weep over Fulvia's death, and she extrapolates and says, and when I die, you will weep even less. Quarrel no more, but be prepared to know the purposes I bear. I go from hence, thy soldier servant making peace or war, as thou affects, as thou causes. Cut my lace, Charmian, come, but let it be. I'm quickly ill. And well. Quickly ill. Oh, I'm so sick. Oh, and I'm just fine. That's how Antony loves. Sometimes he's mad in love, and the very next second, he's totally fine. My precious queen, stop. Give true evidence to his love, which stands in honorable trial. So Fulvia told me. Turn aside, weep for her, then bid adieu to me. Say the tears belong to Egypt. Good now. Play one scene of excellent dissembling. Let it look like. So she kind of goes, show me what it really looks like. You'll heat my blood. Don't make me angry. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. I'll buy my sword. Ooh, and target still immense. But this is not the best. Look, prithee, Charmian, how this Herculean Roman, comparison to Hercules, does become the carriage of his chafe. And what's he do? They clutch at the end of the scene. Our separation so abides and flies that thou residing here goes yet with me, and I hence fleeting here remain with thee. If you've ever read John Donne's A Valediction Forbidding Mourning, Donne uses the exact same image. Okay? Donne's speaker says, I've got to leave. I've got to go over to the continent. You stay here. Okay? And yet you will go with me. And in fact, it's the fact that you stay here that'll bring me back. Okay? And Donne uses the image of a compass and says, as in a compass, you'll be the fixed foot, I'll be the wandering foot. Well, what happens when you do the leg out like this on a compass? It doesn't stay upright. The fixed foot does what? Harkens after it, and it's that fixed foot that makes the compass come back straight and makes the perfect circle, etc. Okay? Finally, we see Octavius, 1:4. He and Lepidus talk. Let's see. I'm going to skip a bunch because we've got to get moving. 1:5, we're back in Egypt, and pick up around, what is that, around 20. So Marty and Cleopatra, Charmian are talking, and Cleopatra is wondering what's going on with Antony because he's left. He's gone off to fight and to solve the civil war. Oh, Charmian, where thinkst thou he is now? Okay, we said she's probably in her mid-40s. How is she acting? Like a teenager, wildly in, not really love, but puppy love. Infatuated. Oh, where do you think he is now? What do you think he's doing? But she doesn't use the language of a teenager. Stands he or sits he? Or does he walk? Or is he on his horse? Oh, a happy horse to bear the weight of Antony. Now, that's just dirty. There's no other way to read that. And if you saw the Shakespeare production, National Shakespeare Festival last summer, because they did Antony and Cleopatra, Carrie Brewer, who did Cleopatra, I mean, she did this scene great. I mean, she just sat there and went, oh, to bear the weight of, do bravely, horse, for what's thou whom thou movest, the demi-atlas of the earth. Well, who is Atlas? The guy holding the earth on his back. The arm and burgeonet of men. He's speaking now, or murmuring. Where's my serpent of old Nile? That's her. She's the serpent of old Nile. Well, that's also Shakespeare foreshadowing for us. For so he calls me. So Alexis comes in, bringing word of Mark Antony. Okay, she's been thinking of our Antony. Alexis comes in. How much unlike art thou, Mark Antony? In other words, okay, you're a man, but you're just not close. Yet coming from him the great medicine hath. So he comes and he has a speech and he brings her a pearl. Okay. Was he sad or merry? Like to the time of the year between the extremes of hot and cold, he was nor sad nor merry. In other words, even keel. Okay. Skip a bunch. Yeah, we can skip that. Go on to 2:2. We see Enobarbus and Lepidus come in, and then Antony and Caesar come in. And we have not an interview. What do you want to call this? An argument between Antony and Caesar. So Antony comes in and says, Caesar, 28 or 29. Welcome to Rome. Thank you. Sit. Caesar's the host. Sit. Antony, sit. Sir. Is Antony saying, call me sir? Or is Antony saying, no, you sit first? I mean, this is a testosterone thing. Well, yeah, buddy. All right. Nay then. And they sit. I learn you take things ill which are not so, or being concern you not. I learn, I hear, that you take things ill which are not so. In other words, I've heard that you are misunderstanding certain things. Or you are taking things to be concerning you, and they don't. I must be laughed at if, or for nothing or little, I should say myself offended, and with you chiefly in the world. You offend me. More laughed at that I should once name you derogately, when to sound your name and not concern me. My being in Egypt, Caesar, what was it to you? Why does my being in Egypt bother you? I was there on my own business. No more than my residing here at Rome might be to you in Egypt. In other words, why do you care what I do in Rome? Yet if you there did practice on my state, that is, you planned, you involved yourself with my position, your being in Egypt might be my question. Caesar is saying, so what else are you and Cleopatra doing other than just having sex? Are you two conspiring against me? How intend you practiced? What do you mean? You may be pleased to catch at mine intent, but by what did here befall me? Your wife and brother made wars upon me. Okay. What is Caesar implying? They didn't do that of their own. You put them up to it. And their contestation was theme for you. That is, their contesting me was what? Your idea. You were the word of war. You did mistake your business. Wrong. My brother never did urge me in his act. That is, inform me, tell me. I did inquire it and have my learning from some true reports that drew their swords with you. That is, I heard about it from people who supported you. Did he not rather discredit my authority with yours? That is, he attacked you, but in doing so, wasn't he actually attacking my authority, my word, by saying he did it on my authority? And make the wars alike against my stomach, having alike your cause? Caesar, you praise yourself by laying defects of judgment to me, but you patched up your excuses. In other words, no. Not so, not so. I know you could not lag. I'm certain on it. Very necessity of this thought, that I, your partner in the cause against which he fought, could not with graceful eyes attend those wars, which fronted mine own peace. As for my wife, I would you had her spirit in such another. I wish you had the spirit of my wife in another general, in somebody else. What's he saying? My wife was more warlike than you, Caesar. My wife was more man than you. The third of the world is yours, which with a snaffle you may pace easy, but not such a wife. You lack something. Would we all had such wives, that the men might go to wars with the women. He's talking about the sexual wars, so to speak. Okay? Caesar, I wrote to you when rioting in Alexandria. I wrote to you when you were not rioting, burning down, when you were having fun. You did pocket up my letters, and with taunts did jibe my missive out of audience. You merely collected the letters and didn't respond. You didn't come to my aid. 86. You have broken the article of your oath, which you shall never have tongue to charge me with. Lepidus. Soft, Caesar. What does Lepidus mean?
Oh, come on, man. We're all friends here.
Yeah, what else? I mean, those are the three triumvirs, right? He's also saying, careful, Caesar. You've broken the article of your oath. What has Caesar just accused him of? Dishonor. Disloyalty. No, Lepidus, let him speak. Antony wants Caesar to hang himself. The honor is sacred, which he talks on now. That is, he said, I broke an oath of honor. Honor is sacred. Supposing that I lacked it. But come on, go on, Caesar. Tell me about the article of my oath. In other words, what was it I swore to you? To lend me arms and aid when I required them, the which you both denied. You didn't lend me arms, you didn't give me aid. That's what his letters asked for. Antony. No, neglected rather. That is, I didn't deny them, I neglected them. politician, right? Lawyer. As nearly as I may, I'll play the penitent to you. Play the penitent to you. Sorry. That's what that means. But mine honesty shall not make poor my greatness, nor my power work without it. Truth is, Fulvia, to have me out of Egypt, made wars here, for which myself, the ignorant motive, do so far as pardon as befits mine honor to stoop in such a case. The reason Fulvia made war on you, that was the civil war that Antony said, was going on in Rome. Okay? That's why he had to leave. Fulvia did that why? Totally to attack Caesar? No, that's the pretense. What's the real reason? To get her husband away from Cleopatra. She thought, the only way I can get him away from that tawny witch's, grasps, is to draw him to Rome through war. And he says, therefore, because I had the ignorant motive, ignorant, not knowing, I had no motive in that, I ask for pardon, as befits mine honor to stoop in such a case. Well, how much is he really stooping? It's like a mere bend of the head. Lepidus, 'tis noble spoken. Notice, Lepidus is trying to smooth things over between the two of them. Why? He wants the triumvirs to remain triumvirs, to stay in power together.
Well, because that's the only way he stays in power. He's the weakest.
Yeah, and it ain't going to last long, okay? Exactly. So, Maecenas says, if it might please you to enforce no further the griefs between you, to forget them quite were to remember that the present need speaks to atone you. Well, what's the present need? They're all being attacked by who? Pompeius. Okay? Another Pompey. There's Pompeys all over the place back then. Lepidus, well spoken, Maecenas. In other words, Lepidus, yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, I like that idea. Okay? Enobarbus. Or if you borrow one another's love for the instant, borrow. If you pretend to love each other for the instant, you may, when you hear no more words of Pompey, return it again. That is, you can take your love back and what? Once Pompey's done with, go at each other hammer and tongs. You shall have time to wrangle in when you have nothing else to do. Okay. What does Enobarbus just said? You can paper over your difficulties right now, but what eventually is going to happen? You two are going to have to battle. One of you is going to have to win. Antony, thou art a soldier only. Speak no more. Why? Why does Antony say that? Shut up, Enobarbus. Because Enobarbus has just spoke truth. Enobarbus, the truth should be silent. I almost forgot. Oh, that's right. Shouldn't speak the truth. What usually happens to truth speakers? They lose their heads. Well, what's going to happen to Enobarbus in the play? He dies. Kills himself, actually. Antony, you wronged this presence. Therefore, speak no more. Go to then your considerate stone. That is, I will be your considerate stone. Got a gloss down there. All right. Keep my thoughts to myself. I do not much dislike the matter, but the manner of his speech. For it cannot be we shall remain in friendship, our conditions so differing in their acts. In other words, Caesar says, I don't dislike what Enobarbus said, I dislike how he says it. He speaks the truth, Caesar admits. We can't remain in friendship much longer. But if I knew what hoop should hold us staunch, if something would bind us together, he uses the word hoop intentionally. from edge to edge of the world, I would pursue it. And Agrippa says, hey, I got an idea. Caesar, you've got a sister. Antony's no longer married. Why doesn't Antony marry your sister? To hold you in perpetual amity, to make you brothers, to knit your hearts with an unslipping knot. Take Antony Octavia to his wife, whose beauty claims no worse 100 than the best of men. Antony, will Caesar speak? Notice, Antony hears and goes, what do you say? Not till he hears how Antony is touched. No, I'm not going to say until you say. You go first. What power is in Agrippa if I would say Agrippa be it so to make this good? Notice, Antony doesn't reply back to Caesar. Agrippa, I like the idea. Can you make it work? Can you make it happen? Caesar says, notice, Agrippa has what? The power of Caesar and his power unto Octavia. That's their way of talking to each other without talking to each other. It's like my going, David, would you tell Amelia? Amelia, would you tell David?
It's like what scene in Harry Potter when Hermione comes to Harry.
Yeah. Yep. So, Antony, may I never to this good purpose that so fairly shows dream of impediment. Well, there's Shakespeare's sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Okay? Yes, I'll marry your sister. Yes, we'll be brothers. Until we're not, until there's good reason to stab you in the back. Well, there's my hand. They clasp and greet each other. Then Maecenas and Enobarbus talk to each other. And Agrippa wants to know how Antony first saw Cleopatra. Line 201. Enobarbus says, I'll tell you, this will blow your mind. The barge she sat in, like a burnished throne, burnt on the water. The poop was beaten gold. That is the poop deck. Gold. Purple the sails, and so perfumed that the winds were lovesick with them. Why would the sails be perfumed?
Smell her coming.
Smell her coming? So that she has perfume smells all around her. Why? Because the Nile is not necessarily a clean river. Right? The oars were silver, which to the tune of flutes kept stroke, and made the water which they beat to follow faster, as amorous of their strokes. For her own person. Okay, so thus far, just in terms of her barge, extreme wealth. For her own person, it beggared all description. Words die to describe Cleopatra's beauty. She did lie in her pavilion, cloth of gold of tissue, or picturing that Venus where we see the fancy outwork nature. On each side her stood pretty dimpled boys, like smiling cupids, with diverse colored fans, whose wind did seem to glow the delicate cheeks which they did cool, and what they undid did. Agrippa, oh, rare for Antony. In other words, lucky Antony. Enobarbus goes on and describes her gentlewomen, etc. Upon her landing, Antony sent to her, invited her to supper. She replied it should be better he became her guest, which she entreated. Or courteous Antony, whom ne'er the word of no woman heard speak, why not? This is part of the courtly love tradition that Shakespeare is bringing into the play. This isn't the only play he brings it into. But it's this idea that a gentleman doesn't say no to a woman when something appropriate is asked. You don't deny, you don't reject. Okay? Being barbered 10 times over goes to the feast. Barbered. I mean, he's getting himself looking good. Okay? And for his ordinary pace, his heart, for what his eyes eat only. Look at the gloss. For his ordinary, for his meal or supper, such as one might obtain at a public table in a tavern, he et only. How does Antony really feast?
His eyes.
With his eyes. Why? Because Cleopatra is a hottie. Royal wench, Agrippa says. She made great Caesar lay his sword to bed. Yeah, that's a sexual innuendo. He plowed her and she cropped. Well, how did she crop? That is, he plowed her, she produced a crop. She has a young son by Caesar, not Octavius, Julius, Octavius's father. In other words, Octavius has a little brother who can become what? No, not necessarily part of triumvirate, because then it would become a quadvirate, whatever.
Quartet.
He can become a threat. Now, he's young. Only like 12, 13, 14 years old, something like that. Okay?
He would have more claim, too, because Octavius is just an adopted son of Caesar. He was actually Caesar's nephew, right?
Mm-hmm. So, he plowed her, she cropped. I saw her once hop 40 paces through the public street, having lost her breath. She spoke and panted. She did make defect, perfection, and breathless power be forth. Now Antony must leave her utterly, Maecenas says. Why? Because he's marrying Octavia. So, what's Maecenas thinking? Well, you can only have one wife at a time, and, it's impossible to cheat on that wife. Go ask Fulvia. Seek her in one of the two places and see what she says. Enobarbus, never. Notice Enobarbus is telling us, the audience, what isn't going to happen. He will not. Age cannot wither her, nor custom stale her infinite variety. Other women cloy the appetites they feed, but she makes hunger. Other women cloy, that is, they kind of stuff and gorge the appetites they feed. You can get enough. Cleopatra, the more you eat, it's like Turkish delight in Chronicles of Narnia. The hungrier you get. Where most she satisfies, for vilest things become themselves in her, that the holy priests bless her when she is riggish. Okay? So, 2-3. Antony's there, soothsayer comes in, and Antony says to the soothsayer, okay, soothsayer, what does sooth mean? Truth. Truth speaker. Whose fortunes are going to rise? Mine or Caesar's? Caesar's. Therefore, Antony, stay not by his side. Thy daemon, what's this daemon? His guiding spirit, his genius. See, we totally misuse this word. Genius. We think it means a really, really smart person. Its original meaning, okay, its etymology means the spirit inside you that tells you what you should become. The thing that you are meant to be. Okay? It's the same as the daemon. Thy daemon, that thy spirit which keeps thee, is noble, courageous, high, unmatchable, where Caesar's is not. Notice, Caesar's daemon isn't noble, courageous, unmatchable. No. Near him, thy angel. Now he uses different terminology. Now he uses Christian terminology, not kind of pagan Greek terminology. Thy angel becomes afeared as being overpowered. Your angel, Antony, when it's around Caesar, it knows something. Therefore, make space enough. In other words, Rome, Alexandria, probably not space enough. Separate yourselves. Okay? If thou dost play with him at any game, thou art sure to lose. And of that, line 27, of that natural luck, he beats thee against the odds. Thy luster thickens when he shines by. Thy luster. What's luster? Look at the gloss, line 28. Thickens, grows dim. Your luster, well, what's the luster caused by? The shining of Caesar standing by. Your luster grows dim the closer you get to Caesar. The farther away you get to Caesar, you get from Caesar, the brighter you shine. I say again, thy spirit is all afraid to govern thee near him. It's not that thy spirit is afraid of Caesar. It's thy spirit what? Lacks control of you when you are near him. He's saying to save yourself, to keep your spirit in control of yourself, get away from Caesar. Okay? 2-4 we'll skip. 2-5. Let's see here. A lot of sexual innuendo. You know, Cleopatra asks Mardian to play. Charmian says, I can't play, my arm is sore. Best play with Mardian. Cleopatra, as well a woman with a eunuch played as with a woman. Come, you'll play with me, sir? Why? Because Mardian is a eunuch. Okay? As well as I can, madam. And when goodwill is shown, though I come too short, playing on the Renaissance usage of will, meaning not just volition, but also genitalia. So when the male genitalia is too short, though it come too short, the actor may plead pardon. Oh, none now, give me mine angle. Okay? That is, let's go fishing. Messenger comes in. Okay, this is a comedic scene. And the messenger comes in. My son played the messenger last summer in this play. It was hilarious. Comes in and tells Cleopatra what? Antony's married. Will it please you hear me? 42. She says, tell me. Say if Antony lives as well, friends with Caesar, not captive. He says he's well. Okay, she goes, that's fine, good. He's friends with Caesar. Better. He and Caesar are even greater friends than before. That's good. You'll make a fortune from me. But yet, madam, I do not like but yet. It does allay the good precedence. Fie upon but yet. But yet is as a jailer to bring forth some monstrous malefactor. You say he's friends with Caesar, state of health. Yeah, you say all that. And thou sayest free. He's like, no, I never said he was free. No, I made no such report. He's bound unto Octavia. For what good turn? Well, for the best turn in the bed. I am pale, Charmian. In other words, I'm going to die. Madam, he's married to Octavia. And she smacks him. Okay? He asks for patience. He says, it's not my fault. So she tells him to go back, come back. Go away, come back. He comes back. Tell me again, he's married, madam. The gods confound thee, line 94. Dost thou hold there still? Should I lie? Oh, I would thou didst. Meaning, dead. He's married? I crave your highness pardon. He is married. He says yes. So, she tells Alexa, go find a messenger, have him come back. Why? She wants to hear what Octavia looks like. Okay. So we get a scene with Pompey, Caesar, Antony, a battle scene. the thing last summer was really good. Because Pompey's soldiers, is it Pompey's soldiers? Yeah. Pompey's soldiers, they added a little bit to the play. They did kind of a chant in Latin, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But the Latin was "Make Rome Great Again." You know, and so they're chanting this "Make Rome Great Again." Magna Roma, Magna Faciemus something or else. Okay, so you get this scene, and Pompey's troops are defeated. Go on to Act 3. We're going to skip a bunch. 3-3. Yeah, we can skip a bunch. No, we can't. Okay, we'll pick up with 3-3. And we got to finish on whatever day that is, Tuesday, I guess. So I'll email you if I have your papers ready and in my box tomorrow.
We don't have to come get them, right?
No, you don't have to come get them. I would encourage you, if you've not